Hi guys, so Shadowlands has been out now for a little while, and one of the most important things that you're going to do in the Shadowlands expansion is to choose a covenant. Something that's very pivotal and important in making this decision can be the different abilities that are involved in choosing the covenant of your choice. Now, what I have been hearing is that some people want to join a covenant because of the ability, but that covenant doesn't feel like the one that their character would fit with. Now, I'm here to tell you every single class in the game can join any covenant and it makes sense. Today we're going to focus on Death Knight, and so let's get started. Venther is the first covenant I am going to focus on. Now, this is probably one of the ones that I'm going to focus the least on because I think it's the easiest choice for people to get their head around. Venther fits the theme, and I'd say it's probably the most stereotypical choice for Death Knight in regards to the armor set, the mount, and the general decor and theme of the zone. It's very dark, it's very edgy, the colour palette is very black and grey and red, and I think especially for Blood DK, with the red anima effects, I think any Death Knight is going to feel at home in the Venther Covenant. Moving swiftly on, let's go to Bastion. So I think one of the things that I'm going to focus on in this series of videos is the rule of character. Now, I'm going to assume, because you're watching this video, you care about character and who your character is. And so I'm going to assume that you have an idea of who your character is. If you don't, that's okay. But ask yourself the question now, who is this character? Now, Death Knights, canonically, in the lore that we have today, were either made Death Knights during the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, or more recently through the Shadowlands expansion. It doesn't really matter which one, or the point that I'm going to focus on is that your Death Knight at one point in time used to be a character that was alive and well and kicking, and one of the classes that we have in the game, whether it was mage, warrior, paladin, warlock, shaman, your Death Knight used to be one of those classes, and upon dying was raised again, became a Death Knight and got a whole new slew of abilities. So I think the most important thing that you can do is ask who your character was before they became a Death Knight. For example, and I'm not going to go into the character of my Death Knight so much in this video, but my Death Knight, before he was a Death Knight, was a warrior. Now, he's a night elf warrior, so that means that he's very long-lived. He's been around for a very long time, and although he has fought in many battles, many wars, he is very much a character that despises violence. He does it because he has to, which is what kind of makes him, to my mind, great. And, for example, during the Legion expansion, he took up the mantle of Death Lord, very much against his better judgment, but he kind of realised that he was the best person for the job and did it anyway, in the hope that the fighting came to a conclusion quicker and he could get back to his fishing and farming in Pandaria and all the things that he preferred to do. With that in mind, that goes against the kind of the bloodthirsty, the edgy, the sharp-edged, blood-tinted Death Knight that you kind of associate with that class, and opens the doorway, for example, for Bastion, because it opens the door to something like a spirit warrior, where you have all the abilities of a Death Knight, but you have this kind of tint of the Kyrian. Not to mention, we kind of have a darker, edgier version of the Kyrians as it stands anyway. If you've played through the story of the Zone, and spoilers here by the way, you have the Forsworn, which are a darker version of the Kyrians. And I think a Death Knight Kyrian kind of falls in between that. You can go anywhere on that spectrum that you like. And returning a little bit towards my own Death Knight's fantasy, he's kind of this honourable soul that seeks peace and an end to bloodshed at all costs, and that is, you know, the focal point of the Kyrians. It's all about honour and being honourable and being honourable in life. Let's say, for example, that that's not your RP, that's not your Death Knight story. Well, what's to stop this expansion and this choice being a reclamation of that honor. Let's say your Death Knight has been the typical Death Knight. They've relished in their death. They've welcomed it with open arms. Perhaps now you have forsaken that a little bit. You've got that kind of regret and you want to be better. You know, you at the end of the day, you haven't gone through the natural process of dying and going to a covenant. So it's your choice. And so your choice is very important. And so this choice could be the first step in a beginning to that reclamation of your honor. Or, you know, just relish in the bloodshed and, you know, lie to the guys and be like, yeah, I'm really honorable and I'd like to join up, thanks, okay. Let's move on to Maldraxxus. Now, I think Maldraxxus is arguably the easiest covenant for anyone to get their head around joining, because Maldraxxus fits into the Shadowlands by being the defender of the Shadowlands. It's the army of the Shadowlands. It's basically the army on call for the Shadowlands. Now, if you think in game, what have we just been through? We've been through the Fourth War. So whatever character you've just played through, let's say you've played BFA, and this can apply to any character, even if you didn't play BFA, if you skip BFA, let's go to Legion, let's go to Wrath of the Lich King. Let's say that you are a completely new player. There are countless wars that have taken place in this world of Warcraft. And so there's your background. In life, you have been a soldier, you've been a warrior, you've been a mage, you've been a priest, you've been a battle mage, a battle priest, all these things that have taken part in all these battles, all these wars. And you get into the Shadowlands now, and Maldraxxus is the place to sign up to fight, to become a lieutenant, a general in this army of the Shadowlands. Now, that's a little bit of a cop-out, and I get what you're saying. So let's go specifically into the Death Knight. Now, let's go to the origin of your power as a Death Knight. It's the Scourge. You go back to the Wrath of the Lich King and Arthas and the origin of the powers of the Death Knights. And that power originates in Maldraxxus. That's where your summonings came from. That's where your minions came from. So, for example, you could go the complete opposite way and say that your character is quite scholastic. You want to learn more about the origin of your power. Where did it come from? You know, you start to see these abominations and these skeletons and these undead, or what you consider to be undead, in this zone, in this world, and you want more knowledge, and through that knowledge you want more power. You want to find the secrets. Arguably, Maldraxxus is the place where you could steep yourself in that Death Knight lore. And I think to a lot of Death Knights it can be that place where they feel most at home. Now, let's move on to Arden Wield, arguably the big boy of this video, because I think this is the one that I've heard most people kind of say that they have trouble seeing Death Knight joining. I understand. I get you. At face value, your big, sharp Death Boy is going into Shadowlands, and the last place you want to go is the world of fairies and unicorns and blue trees and glitter. I understand. Now, my job today in this video is to say why that is not such an opposing idea. I mean, maybe for the glitter, but, you know, let's forget the glitter for just a second. Now, I'm going to ask one question, first of all, and this might not apply to you, and that's fine, but what race is your character? Is it a Night Elf? Is it a Troll? Is it a Tauren? Because that's kind of an easy mode of how you can get into this Covenant, you know, because they're all races that have some connection to nature, which is what Arden Wield is all about. And again, it's going into this past life. What were you in the past life? You have that connection there through nature, and I understand how it can be a conflicting thing that you've become a Death Knight, and it's one of the most arguably unnatural things that you can be. That is true in Azeroth. However, you are not in Azeroth anymore. You're in Shadowlands. And now, spoiler alert, but it's all death. Everything around you, however it looks, is all death, including Arden Wield. Now, we distinguish between life and Death Knights and warriors and Death Knights and mages and Death Knights and priests. We do. However, when you look at the Shadowlands, there's no distinction. Everything around you is death. Every character in Arden Wield is going to look at your Death Knight, look at your minions. They're not going to think death. They're going to think Maldraxxus. They're going to think oh, this is an aspect of normality. This is an aspect of what we associate to be something that fits into our world. I mean, if you think about it, Azerothians look at you with either distaste or outright violence. This is something that the intro quest for the Wrath of the Lich King, once you join your faction, focuses on. You go to your main capital city and the citizens spit at you, they shout at you, they throw tomatoes at you. Now, this is one of the few moments where you're going to have no judgment. You no longer have to be the beast, the death knight, the edgy edgelord. You can revisit the calm of your past life and who you were, or who you want to be. Because something to remember when you're choosing your covenant and feeling like you need to fit in is that this isn't you dying. You haven't died and gone to the Shadowlands. This isn't the natural course of things. You haven't gone to where you belong necessarily. So if all of these things are things that you can't get your head around, and everything I've said, you're like, I hear you, but I can't do it. I can't think that way. Well, think this way. At the end of the day, this isn't your death. This isn't you being funneled into the place that you necessarily belong. This is the place that you're choosing. And again, you've got to revisit your character. Who is your character? You've lived as a Death Knight through pain and violence and hate and stereotypes and being seen a certain way. This is the one chance you have to truly kind of experience being a normal person again, because this is the first place that you visited where you're not going to be looked at in those ways. You've experienced that pain and that violence, and this is your one chance to put that aside and to find something new and to find the calm and the peace and the life that you had before you were a Death Knight, and to experience that again. Spend a little time with the animals, spend a little time around the trees and the glitter. And let's be honest, the armor set for Arden Wield is sweet. Look guys, that's going to wrap up this video. The important thing to remember when choosing your covenant, especially if you think that the covenant that you're choosing isn't the one that fits your class, think again. Think of all the things that I've talked about today. Think of who your character is, what your character wants, what your character's been through. Perhaps think of your Death Knight not as a Death Knight, but as a citizen of Azeroth. Think of them as a night elf, a human, an orc, a being with a life, and go forward knowing that. Or, sack it all off and lie through your teeth and be like, hey, Bastion boys, can I get in, please? Yeah, cool. No, I'm really honourable. Yeah, cool. And then just kill everyone. That's fine too. But with that, thank you for watching. And hopefully this has gone a little bit of a way towards making you feel like the covenant of your choice is where you belong. Thank you for watching, and see you later, guys.